We've been noticing in the last little while that the pace of evolution is stepping up for a lot of us. Our souls are wanting to move with a lot more urgency, and there's a sort of a compulsion to release all that we are not so that we can embody and live as a lot more of who we really are.
Yeah, we've been seeing that on a personal level in our own journey. After our house burned down about a year and a half ago, it's been such a rapid process of evolution and really a dissolution process where a whole old identity we had of that life, that home, it just was gone in 1 hour of fire. And then dissolving all that way we lived and had our life framed, gone, just taken away. And we're actually just beginning now to reemerge.
Yeah, it's like we had to release so much identification and attachment to all those things that were in that house and everything that represented, and a whole way of life, living way out in the deep country in incredible quiet and spaciousness, living among certain kinds of people, having certain experiences out there as part of our daily life. All of that was wiped out so quickly, like a sand painting, as we've written about before, that it's taken us at least a year to really go through all the layers of processing with that. And in the last few months, we've begun to feel ourselves coming out of that death and dissolution into a whole new creative level of inspiration that feels really new in our entire lives, not just after the fire, but overall.
We've been seeing the same thing. What's really cued us to something is going on. We've been seeing the same thing in our work with people. And everybody's in different stages of the process, but the one thing we're seeing now is this big acceleration in dying to old ways of being and coming into the incipient stages of new ones. Work with one person, for instance, who just had his whole career just completely dissolved away, walked away from decades and decades and very successful in a career, and now is off on a whole new way of being. He went through a complete dissolution process over years to finally come to the point where something new is emerging in him.
Another person we're working with is looking at that repeating patterns of fear and anxiety and worry that would appear in his life every so often. He's finding new ways to deal with that now. He's beginning to come out the other side. He's deepening in his connection with God and Christ.
Another friend who we've worked with had his life fall apart, his marriage fall apart, moved back to his home, went through an intense year where he thought he was going to die numerous times. But now all of a sudden, he feels completely galvanized to get involved in politics and is off on a new adventure going to Washington, D.C. I think what's really changing here is that as we are into this process of leaving the old, and I use the metaphor of the caterpillar butterfly, the whole cycle of human existence, where we as souls were living identified with being physical beings alone, just earthbound caterpillars. And eventually, coming to the end of this cycle, and many of us have known this, the prophecies, etc., say that we're birthing a new species, birthing a new awakened human species. I think we just accelerated in that process. And we're going towards that singularity between the dimensions, where we're leaving more quickly the old third dimensional existence and beginning to bring in that higher dimensional existence, the divine soul awakened human butterfly. And this is an intuition, but I sense that's what we may be seeing here in some of the examples that we're experiencing is that there's something, this death process continues, but also something new is emerging.
As we look around at the planet and all the crises that are up in every area of life, it can be really tempting for us as humans to think that there is a death going on and that we ourselves might be in the middle of a death process. But actually, when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, it doesn't die. It transmutes. There's a mysterious alchemical process that happens in the chrysalis that changes the caterpillar into the butterfly that eventually emerges and flies away. And one of the first stages in that process, as the caterpillar goes into that, it melts. Its very physical 3D solidity dissolves. And it becomes like a puddle of just goo.
And our perception is that we're now entering in deeply into this cycle where the planet as a whole, the whole collective human species, is entering a planetary chrysalis. And if we look around, most of us are aware that almost virtually every aspect of human existence, whether it be the environment, ecologically, politically, socially, economically, everything seems to be in some sort of crisis or in the process of some kind of breakdown. The patterns that we used to know just aren't there anymore. Just looking what just happened in our country here politically with this last election, the great polarization between the left and the right, and this new thing emerging with the unity party. All over the globe, there's political upheavals going on. The global economic system is on a precipice, ready to potentially make a huge collapse as everywhere globally debt levels are astronomical. The gap between the rich and the poor grows. All signs of a system that no longer is working. And that's what needs to happen, because this old system, both within us and collectively in the human techno-global industrial culture, has got to dissolve, because it was based upon the old physical, materialistic, three-dimensional model where we lived in the illusion of fear and separation. So all these things that we've built in terms of our own identities, individually and collectively, have to dissolve, because they cannot go into a world in which love, oneness, and our divine nature is the basis for our existence and our world. So as we go into the chrysalis on a planetary level, we necessarily are going to see the dissolution of these old systems. It has to happen. Another metaphor that's helpful is that of, and really analogous to what's going on, is that in systems theory with complex systems, when complex systems go through a transformation, they go through a particular process where when a complex system is no longer functional, when it's outstripped its resource base, its sustainability, which you can obviously see the Earth is there. Earth and humanity are not in sustainability. We've developed this very complex, again, techno-industrial culture, but we're not sustainable with the planet. And when that happens, and it was, I think, bound to happen as we evolved at this cycle of evolution, materialistic mental egoic evolution, that we came to this point where we built this whole thing that no longer serves us. So that is breaking down. It has to break down. And when complex systems break down, the way they do it is they tend to polarize. It seems like the issues become polarized dramatically until the center no longer holds in the old system and the system breaks down. Again, you see that economically, you see it politically, You see it everywhere, these big polarizations that are happening. But that causes the breakdown to occur for something new to emerge. But there has to be that dissolve of the old order. When that happens, when that dissolution process happens, it appears to be called chaos. And how many institutions and people's lives look like there's more chaos than ever? Well, that chaos is really that state of the caterpillar dissolving, waiting for something new to happen, waiting for the incipient imaginal cells that will become the butterfly to emerge. Those imaginal cells are like the DNA, the consciousness information that will create that butterfly out of that amorphous gel that was the caterpillar. Our perception is that we are now entering into a time where those imaginal cells are being awakened more readily. And those of us who came here knowing this was a lifetime to contribute to the awakening of this planet, we are those imaginal cells. We are the ones who are here to become the first ones to move into that soul-awakened, divine human butterfly consciousness. We are moving into our time as never before. The essence of this evolution is really about leaving our identification with ego and the human mind.
What we're seeing in sessions and what we're hearing from friends and people we know is that it's becoming intolerable to live from the ego mind any longer. There's just so much suffering there. When we believe the thoughts, the judgments, the ideas of separation and all the rest that go on in the ego mind, we just don't enjoy life. And so more and more of us are realizing it's time for us to identify the sources of that suffering, get to the bottom of them, and go beyond them. And to listen more and more deeply to this still small voice of the soul that's always there inside of us, in our depths, in our heart of hearts, just hoping that we will turn to it and let it guide our way through life. Because when we do that, we experience the joy, the happiness, the peace inside, and the ability to love both ourselves and everyone else on levels that we have never known before. This is how we experience the shift from caterpillar consciousness to the butterfly level of our beings. It's a complete shift in frequency. It's a discontinuity. We don't just gradually morph from one to the other. It's a radical discontinuity that happens in the chrysalis. And a lot of us are experiencing that radical discontinuity right now in our own life patterns.
One of the things that can seem paradoxical when we know we're here to bring the light is that we may find ourselves in deeper levels of excavating our shadow, or the pain and suffering from childhood traumas, relationship issues. It can seem more difficult than ever, but that also is part of the chrysalis process. The higher we go, and the more we move towards the light of our true nature, the deeper we also have to go into our humanness to bring to the surface everything from that old, deep, unresolved human caterpillar consciousness. All of our programming, all of our conditioning needs to come up so that it can be redeemed and brought into the luminosity of our soul and beyond.
A lot of us are looking at our childhood issues one more time. We may have excavated that material over and over again for decades, but now we're being brought to the more core or causal levels of whatever we've carried throughout this life as core patterns. And many of us are looking at patterns that transcend this lifetime and may have gone on over many, many lifetimes. This is the kind of work that's going on now. The deepest darkness is wanting to come to the surface so that the light can penetrate it.
So, as we've often come to say, our stuff is not in the way, it is the way. And if deeper, more difficult things are arising that you're finding really challenging and hard to get through, just know that that is essential to this caterpillar to butterfly process.
Yeah, even if it seems like your life is falling apart, that may have to happen so that something much more soulful can begin for you.
And you may need support in this process from all kinds of different modalities. And principle of those is how to make this journey from ego to soul, how to die to these limiting beliefs and judgments,
Emotional patterns,
identities,
and physical issues of dis-ease of one kind or another.
And if you do, we are midwives to this process. We are catalysts to this process and have been for 3.5 decades.
We're kind of specialists in dying to who we used to be, who we thought we were, and going through the process of rebirth and awakening. Our whole lives have been about that. And we are here to support you in whatever kind of process you are finding yourself in the middle of.
If you're going through something like that, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'll get on the phone or on Zoom and just discuss where you are and try to dive a little more deeply into how you might move forward and to see whether working together might be really helpful for you at this time.
Yeah, we just really encourage you to contact us. Don't wait. There's no point in prolonging the suffering. We're really here to support people in finding out that we are not our minds, we are not our emotions, we are not our pasts, we're not what happened to us, we're not all the baggage that we've been carrying with us. We're so much more than that.
And we also can help resonate that divine core in you, that core of the imaginal cell you are, the divinity in the core of your being. We can help resonate that and bring it to the surface so it can be brought more deeply into your conscious awareness. It's one of the gifts also that we've been given.
There's nothing we like more than sharing all of this with you.
We work with you on a soul-to-soul basis, and that means we do not charge for our work in the old 3D materialistic way. We simply offer our work, and we ask that those who are drawn to do this work simply respond and contribute on a soul-to-soul basis as you feel guided by your inner knowing of what it is appropriate for you to give back.
So if you feel in your heart of hearts that it's time for you to embody more of the light of the divinity that you really are, if it's time for you to take the next steps toward fulfilling your soul destiny and purpose, we are here to support you in that. So we wish you well and send you love and blessings. Namaste.